Sunset Overdrive is an action-adventure third-person shooter developed by Insomniac Games and was published as an Xbox One exclusive from Microsoft. The game was released in 2014, and since then, fans have been anxiously awaiting a sequel. With seemingly no imminent announcement for Sunset Overdrive 2, let's discuss what happened to the franchise and if we can expect to see a sequel announcement in the coming years. As always, all the sources will be linked in the description below, so make sure to check those out and support those original articles. And also make sure to follow me on Twitter at Fonct2. I'm going to start posting more about the videos and giving updates on live streams, so go to my Twitter to check all of that out. And with that out of the way, let's get into Sunset Overdrive 2. Sunset Overdrive launched in October of 2014 and was released exclusively for the Xbox One, and the game received very good reviews. The game has an 81 critic score and a 7.8 user score on Metacritic. On OpenCritic, the game has a strong rating with an 83 top critic average. But unfortunately, this did not translate into sales for the game. No official numbers have been released, but VG Charts estimates the game has sold 1.16 million copies worldwide, and this is drastically less than Insomniac's next two exclusive titles for the PlayStation 4, which were Ratchet & Clank, which sold an estimated 2.38 million copies worldwide, and Marvel's Spider-Man, which has sold more than 13 million copies worldwide. Now, one point I will say in terms of sales is Sunset Overdrive was a brand new IP, while these other titles are established franchises. So 1 million copies for a brand new exclusive IP is justifiable, and that should be taken into account when talking about sales of this game compared to other Insomniac titles. So even though this game has found a dedicated player base and fans, and has seen a resurgence due to Xbox Games Pass, many skeptics are unsure if this will be enough to justify another entry in the franchise. And after this game was released, the studio went on to work on other properties and remained relatively quiet about Sunset Overdrive. But that didn't stop them from talking about it somewhat, and the first information we got was during an article with Game Informer in 2017. The president of Insomniac, Ted Prince, was asked about a sequel and said, quote, "You'd have to ask Microsoft. We are passionate about the franchise and we own it, so you may see more Sunset in the future from us. No promises and no timeline to speak of, but it is something that represents our willingness to create unexpected experiences." And for the most part, this was enough to get fans excited. The fact that Insomniac still owns the IP is important for what happens later. And it's nice to hear that they didn't sell away everything to Microsoft, but if they did want to continue moving forward with the development of a sequel, they would need someone to help them fund it. And the next news comes in October of 2017 during a live stream on the Insomniac Games Twitch account. During the live stream, Ted Prince once again was asked about the return of Sunset Overdrive, and this is what he had to say.
Here's an IP question. You've created a lot of different IP that you own now. Fuse, Sunset, VR games, mobile games. How do you decide when it's time to, feature those again or make a sequel? Like what's the next step after you create and own an IP?
It really depends on what we think the audience wants and how much it will cost to make that sequel. I mean, Sunset is something that I know a lot of our fans talk about wanting to see the sequel. We need a partner for that. Yep. That's a big game, or a Sunset 2 would be a very large scope game.
So you're saying, like, if you found the right publisher to publish Sunset Overdrive 2, that would be the right situation for that game.
That's right.
And then that publisher, then it means it could come out on it could come out on multiple platforms, not just on Xbox.
Yeah. That would be the intent.
There's something for you guys. So call your favorite publisher, tell them, hey, Insomniac owns Sunset. Bring us Sunset Overdrive 2 on PS4, and Xbox One, on PC, all of them.
Tell them that Sunset actually, when it was part of Games for Gold, was played by a lot of people.
The numbers are gigantic, right?
Yes, millions.
Millions and millions of people have downloaded and played Sunset Overdrive 1.
So once again, Prince reiterates the idea that Microsoft did not want to move forward with a sequel, and because Insomniac still owned the IP, they would be willing to make the game if they found the right publishing partner, and they wouldn't want to compromise their vision. They would want the sequel to be even bigger in scope than the original, and it could also help the sales of the game if they were able to launch on multiple platforms and with the good word of mouth from the original. So at this point, it sounds like they have at least thought about taking it to multiple platforms, and that they had an idea for a bigger world and some ideas floating around the studio for what a sequel could look like. Then there was a leak in 2018 that gained some traction. The leak came from Amazon Italy and listed Bloodborne 2 for the PS4 and Sunset Overdrive 2 for the Xbox One. And obviously this did not end up being true. The biggest tell is that Insomniac was purchased by Sony 1 year later, and Insomniac even went on their Twitter account and responded to a fan who sent them the leak saying, quote, "I wouldn't trust it, Amazon Italy is not Walmart Canada," which is in reference to the Walmart Canada leak that happened before E3 and ended up accidentally announcing a lot of games. So once again, this leak is debunked. And the discussion of a Sunset Overdrive sequel did not stop there. In an interview from IGN, Ted Prince discussed the possibility of a Sunset Overdrive sequel again and said, quote, "I think one of the great things about starting a franchise and having the opportunity to make sequels is that you've, in many cases, made the hardest decision already. When you establish an IP, you know what the tone is, you know what the character is, you know what the core mechanics are that work. You know what players liked and didn't like. So doing a sequel for any game, be it Sunset Overdrive or something else, is an opportunity to deliver something to fans that is significantly better than the original, and that's something that I think we at Insomniac would love to do someday." He continues on saying, "Although there's a lot of love for Sunset Overdrive at Insomniac, that alone isn't enough to ensure a sequel. For us, it's a timing challenge, it's a bandwidth challenge, but I do, to your point, feel like there is a lot of people out there who love Sunset, and we've certainly been asked frequently by fans." So once again, he reiterates that the hard part is out of the way for the IP. Now it's established, players know what to expect, the developer knows what to expect, the tone, the style, the gameplay, and the hard part is out of the way. Now it's just when they choose to revisit the franchise and how they want to take it in the future. And that once again, it's a bandwidth issue. They're working on multiple games and can't set aside enough resources to truly make the sequel they want to. And then we got the massive news that Sony planned on acquiring Insomniac Games in August of 2019, most likely due to the massive success of Marvel's Spider-Man, and fans weren't sure how this change would affect the possibility of a Sunset Overdrive sequel, because now it seemed like Insomniac was just flipping from one exclusive publisher to another. They went from Microsoft for Sunset Overdrive 1, and now they would be working exclusively with Sony, and fans weren't sure if this would drastically hurt the possibility of a Sunset Overdrive sequel, because how much crossover is there between the Xbox One exclusivity and a PS4 exclusivity or PS5? So it seems like chances have gone a little bit down since the acquiring of the company. And then we got an interview with The Hollywood Reporter in that same month that seemed to reflect those fears of Sony's future with Sunset Overdrive. The Sony Interactive chairman, Sean Layden, during the interview was asked about Sunset Overdrive, and this is what he had to say to the question. Quote, "What does the acquisition mean for a series like Sunset Overdrive, which was a Microsoft exclusive?" He responds saying that was a great experience for Insomniac, and they learned a lot through that as well. As far as the IP itself, we haven't really turned over the files on that one to see what that actually means. To be honest, we like what they've been doing in the Spider-Man franchise, and things like Ratchet and Clank are certainly vital series in the present and future, and that's what we're concentrating on. Which sounds pretty definitive that Sony moving forward is prioritizing games that have already been PlayStation exclusives and have been massive hits for the studio, and that is exactly what we've seen from Insomniac lately and why they don't have the bandwidth for other projects. Sony recently announced Spider-Man Miles Morales and Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, both of which are surefire hits for the studio, while Sunset Overdrive 2 could still be seen as a gamble going from one exclusive console to another, assuming that the game would be an exclusive again, but this time on the opposite console. It also was confirmed as well that Sony now holds the rights to past Insomniac works, but the publishing details are less clear, and some have speculated that Microsoft still has a hold on the publishing for future Sunset Overdrive titles, which could be another reason why Sony is hesitant to move forward with a sequel. But that still didn't stop fans from speculating that images Insomniac has been posting on their Twitter account tied to a new Sunset Overdrive game. The biggest example was an image from the Sunset Overdrive DLC with a caption saying, "That looks infected," which fans took to potentially mean a new game. But if you look through Insomniac's Twitter account, they do that same format tweet with a vague caption and a picture for all their games. To this day, they have continued to post images of Sunset Overdrive. So where does that leave us? It all comes down to Insomniac and how dedicated they are to the franchise. It seems like they've been playing ball with Sony. They are releasing a new Ratchet & Clank along with Spider-Man Miles Morales, and probably are working on a true Spider-Man sequel. But if they build up enough goodwill with Sony, it wouldn't be out of the question for Sony to let Insomniac develop a studio fan favorite project for morale, and that could definitely be Sunset Overdrive 2. There are a lot of jumps for us to get there, but it's not out of the realm of possibility, and it really just depends on how bad Insomniac wants to make the title. But if that does happen, I would say we are many years away from that ever being released. I wouldn't say the series is dead, but just hopefully on an extended hiatus. And that's where I'm going to end this video. Make sure to like and share, subscribe for weekly gaming news, and I will see you guys in the next one.